My name's Abby O'Callaghan. I'm the workforce manager here at AgriFutures Australia. So trying to attract people to our fabulous agricultural industries. But to lead the webinar today, I'm going to hand over to Bryce Ives.
Thank you, Abby. And it's really lovely to see about 50 people online at the moment. And we're talking really about the insights and perspectives of young people on how to transform the agricultural industry for a more prosperous tomorrow. And to set the scene around that, it was the Horizon Scholars, a really remarkable group of young people who receive a scholarship that's industry sponsored, facilitated by AgriFutures, and through the Horizon Scholarship Program get supported in their undergraduate studies. So this is a real flagship program now in rural industries where these scholars get exposed to industry placements, connections with industry, leadership development, and every year have a gathering or a summit where they get to connect with one another and connect with the industry and with AgriFutures and get to think about their values, their leadership perspective, and the future of rural industries and how they see themselves in the future of rural industries. And so it's actually quite incredible, Abby, to be doing this webinar today because about a week ago, we were doing the next iteration of that summit with the Horizon Scholars. So Jenna Wright, who you're going to meet with, was here in Cairns in far north Australia. And we just had the next edition of that summit. And in that, we were talking about innovation and talking about the future of rural industries with the backdrop of Northern Australia. But if you jump back 12 months ago, Jenna was in far less tropical Albury-Wodonga, and Bill Lee, who was with us as well, another Horizon scholar, was also in that conversation. And that's where this report came from. So from this gathering, one of the big themes that emerged over the 5 days of having the Horizon Scholars together was about workforce and about what kind of industry do I want to be part of as a young person moving forward? As somebody who cares about agriculture, who wants a future in rural industries, what is going to keep me involved as a young person? And what are the barriers that are stopping other young people from being involved? And so we had an amazing conversation over 5 days of workshops. And it wasn't just the Horizon Scholars talking to one another, but there was some incredible intergenerational collaboration that happened as well. So we brought in year 9 and 10 students from Albury-Wodonga, from Scots College in Albury, who did some co-workshops, co-design workshops with the Horizon Scholars. And we also had the chance to connect with board members of AgriFutures, industry leaders, and local leaders from that region to really consider this question. What would make for a more prosperous rural industries for young people? And obviously this report is biased, Abby, because the Horizon Scholars actually want a future that is vibrant and prosperous for everybody in agriculture. It's also biased because they're already committed. You know, they've already got skin in the game. They're not emerging leaders, they're already leaders in rural industries. We might just check we've got everybody muted, if that's okay, because I can hear somebody coming through right now, Abby. If we find that. Hopefully they don't say anything too awkward in that conversation. There we go, excellent, thank you. So that's the background to that conversation and what we're going to unpack a little bit today. So let me just also say up front, I'm here in Cairns in Northern Australia. I want to acknowledge up front the lands I'm on today, which is the Gmoy, Wallumbura and Yindinji lands, the traditional owners in Northern Queensland here in Cairns. And that's also really important as well, because one of the things, very Cairns shirt as well, thank you, Jacob. I've just went down to Kmart in Cairns and just got this shirt this morning, particularly for this webinar. It's important to acknowledge that up front because two things. One, in our most recent Horizon Scholar Summit a week ago, one of the big themes that came out of that conversation was, as young people who are committed to agriculture and committed to rural industries, what are we going to do to work better in partnership with First Nations people? And particularly with the backdrop here around all of the work that's happening with native seeds, happening with native foods, and around IP as well. Like, how can we as leaders work to support First Nations people around their IP and to protect that and work well in partnership? And I think that that was seeded actually in the previous summit in Albury-Wodonga, and when we were talking about workforce. In that conversation, one of the things that I heard loud and clear was, is agriculture going to be an industry that I want to be part of if the question of First Nations partnership and collaboration is not fully rectified? So in other words, you know, like the scholars, you know, were saying, here's an industry that I want to be part of, and here is a wicked problem within the industry, one that must be solved, which is how do we better collaborate, how do we better partner with First Nations people? And this might end up being a reason why I don't continue in this industry. That was certainly something which we heard on the ground from the Horizon scholars and from other young people. And so in acknowledging country and wherever you are today, of course, I'm acknowledging it as well with a sense that we've got work to do, and we've also got a real opportunity in front of us. Like if I think about the young people in the Horizon Scholar program, vibrant, smart, great future emerging and current leaders. And if I think about the opportunity of working better and in partnership and in proper collaboration with First Nations people, I think, golly gosh, we could actually have a very vibrant future in Australian agriculture if we get things right. And that's obviously what a lot of the Horizon scholars want to achieve as well. So I'm going to introduce Bill, I'm going to introduce Jenna. And as I'm doing that, I'm also really keen to know who's on the line right now. So if you can use the chat box and very quickly let me know who you are, where you're from, and also literally and figuratively, because you might be from a particular organisation or representing a particular group, but also very interested where you are from geographically as well. So use the chat box so we can see that. And Bill, I'm going to come to you first of all. So 4th generation cereal and sheep farming family in beautiful Birchip, which is one of my favourite parts of Victoria, where I do a lot of work in the Mallee, northwest Victoria. Also, you've got a fabulous Birchip moustache, which I know is a tradition in your part of the world to have such a good-looking mo like this. Paint the scene, first of all. Like, if your story was a Hollywood film, give us like a 3-minute version of it. How do you get connected in agriculture, and what's your journey through agriculture and education to now?
Thanks for that, Bryce. Hello, everyone on the line. Great to be with you all today. My journey into agriculture, obviously growing up on the farm, but throughout my through growing up, really, all I really saw of the farm was tough times. Obviously, through the millennial drought, mum and dad raising 4 young kids. They did very well to shield us from the farm, but could certainly understand what a good year and what a bad year felt like at home. Agriculture to me felt like tension or stress at home, and it wasn't really that encouraging or inspiring. So going on as a young kid, I just loved me football and school, and wasn't too interested in agriculture. And then it come time to VCE and the crunch time where you have to start choosing subjects and career path. And it certainly wasn't a first choice, but I loved my VCE teacher. VCE agriculture was my favourite subject at school, and it was as clear a choice out of any to put agriculture down, and I got that at Melbourne University at the end of year 12, but took a gap year because I wasn't quite sure. And I got to work on the farm for a good stint this time in that gap year, and I left for a little bit while I was playing football in Bendigo. And it was during that time that I found that I really missed the farm and had a real passion for agriculture, which I was really excited about to finally find what I was interested in, and got into uni and started applying for a few scholarships where you have to flesh out your thinking and explain your interest in agriculture and your beliefs. And it was through those processes and started my university studies that I really found a great love in the industry, and no more cemented so than the Horizon Scholarship, just working with that calibre of people. And when you start meeting great industry leaders, yeah, nothing was more inspiring than that for my start in agriculture. Bryce?
So, Bill, I mean, I want to just begin because, like, your story is one that I've actually heard a lot over many years. So I'm actually seeing on the line, for instance, got Katie McAllister, who's one of the ABC Haywire producers. Hi, Katie. My background in facilitating goes right back to 2005 with the Haywire program, facilitated that for many years with the ABC. And I've heard this story time and time again, which of course is a smart, really articulate, beautiful brain like yourself, coming from a second or third generation farming background and being surrounded by a doom and gloom narrative, which is not intentional, but it's kind of all around you. And so I'm just interested for a moment, like, as you've been exposed to other parts of industry and opportunities, how do you see that doom and gloom narrative now? And what opportunities have you seen that have surprised you?
Yeah, I suppose my view of agriculture was quite naive in just being from a sheep and cropping area, which is lower rainfall in northwest Victoria. So my view of agriculture was very small in terms of a global perspective. And it's easy to be trapped in your own bubble and just see that doom and gloom where you are. And then when I started getting a more global perspective and a broader view of agriculture and the industry as a whole, that's where I saw a lot of opportunity. Prospering industry with a few good years, especially in the last few years. Really, everyone's had some good times in agriculture with some good prices, and just the new jobs coming to the forefront of the movement. I think that's been quite exciting.
But we almost
lost
you. We almost lost you because you really could have gone and studied something else and not seen any of those new jobs.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Yeah, and I suppose that was important to have that great mentor in agriculture to get me in. Otherwise, you could lose a lot of people like that to other industries that might look a little bit more appealing.
So just paint a picture then. We've heard a bit about your background. We can see the Birchip mustache. We know you love your footy as well. Where are you now and what are you doing? And just give a sense of like what your world looks like, because you've just become an alumnus of the Horizon program. You're working in industry. So what are you doing now?
It's actually a Northern Territory moustache, Bryce. I'm up on a cattle station. I'm southwest of Katherine, about 700 kilometres. Katherine would be probably the closest big town. Near Kalkaringi. I'm on the border of the Tanami Desert, and I'm on a cattle station called Birrindudu Station. It's a Heytesbury-owned station. Brahman cattle, about 27,000 head of Brahman cattle on 1.7 million acres. It was a dream that I realised through the Horizon Scholarship. There was a lot of scholars that had been up north and loved their life as a ringer, and my father had grown up. It was on a horse stud. They were a horse stud, and I really wanted to ride horses and chase cows for a year. So yeah, I've entered into the ag industry. Doing something I have nothing about. I can only just learn how to stay on a horse really and step around a cow. So that's what I'm up to at the minute, Ross.
I mean, a radically different world to Birchip and the Mallee as well, I can imagine.
Massively, yes. Yep.
I'm gonna introduce Jenna Wright, who's also on the line, and I mean, this is where it becomes interesting because Bill, with lots of love to you, you kind of fit the mold of what we expect an agricultural student to look like. I mean, look at your shirt, look at your hair, look at where you've come from. You love your footy, you're from Birchip, 4th generation farmer, etc. Jenna, you are completely not what we expect at all. So let me just kind of set the scene, what I wrote in the report. So Horizon Scholar Jenna Wright does not fit the bill of a typical agricultural student. So born and raised in Sydney, she found her interest purely by chance whilst at high school. Jenny, you're smart, deeply committed to genetics and biotechnology, and have a long-term passion and aspiration for improving Australian crops to keep up with environmental changes. So like, you're a big win for us getting you into agriculture, but I'm interested in your little Hollywood movie story, the 3-minute version, but also this thing around by chance, because this is one of the real concerns of the report, that often, I mean, by Bill, really there was the by chance that someone pushed him in year 12 and he went back into agriculture despite the doom and gloom narrative around him. But coming from Sydney, that chance would have been, you know, I mean, even sort of, you know, hard, like much bigger chance in the end. So give me your background and experience.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Sydney with very little exposure to agriculture. Growing up, you know, just a few visits to farms that friends owned. And it was only when I moved schools in high school, in year 10, to a school that offered agriculture as an elective subject that I even knew that it was an option. I don't even think I'd considered that it could be a subject beforehand. And I was lucky enough that my school had a really great program that was run by passionate, dedicated teachers who I'm still in contact with today, who made the program as good as it was and encouraged so many people to take tertiary study in the field. I mean, I even didn't pick to start doing tertiary study in agriculture at first. I did a different degree for a year and then decided to come back to it. But I think if I hadn't gotten lucky enough to attend that school, I don't think I ever would have ended up doing this today.
And from that, like now this North Shore Sydney gal is like knee deep in the agricultural industry. So what are you doing, and like what surprises have come from this experience, and just paint that picture for us.
Yeah, at the moment I'm in my honours year, so I'm finishing at the end of the year and I'm studying molecular genetics. I think coming into agriculture, what really surprised me was how broad it is. From what I knew beforehand was very little, and what I mostly knew was primary production. I think studying agriculture at school and at university mostly, and meeting people who work in the industry, I've actually realized just how many jobs I can go into that might not be directly related to production, but they contribute to agriculture as a whole. And I think there was absolutely no way I could have guessed how many opportunities there were.
This report like puts forward a couple of big questions, and we've received really wonderful feedback from industry leaders, CEOs, board members around these questions, for instance, being useful in strategic planning sessions moving forward, or in staff meetings to really prompt bigger conversations around purpose and values. But one of the big questions that came through, well, the 3 big questions: what if young people change the narrative of Australian agriculture for good? And so Bill, like part of that was the like understanding the doom and gloom narrative, like of course comes from somewhere, because there are times where this is tough, this industry is tough, the lived experience of people on the ground, we can't be Pollyanna-ish, like your parents in particular in the Mallee would have gone through some incredibly tough years, and it's a roller coaster up and down. However, you know, like changing the narrative for good, there is also like a bigger picture here, which we can see around a new vision of sustainability, of innovation, of inclusivity, a profit and purpose going hand in hand as well. So look, maybe first, Bill, like, you know, your perspective on that, and like how you manage like this lived reality on one side with all of these opportunities, tech, innovation. How do you see that now, and how do you understand the narrative that needs to change?
Yeah, a great question, Bryce. It's important, I think, just to get that narrative out early on. I think if we let people make their own mind up on what they see online and media and the news, then that's where their perceptions can be really affected by this stigma around the ag industry, and we want to change that. Really, the Horizon Scholars as a whole really want to have a change the direction of that view of agriculture, and through. Sorry, come again with the question, Bryce. I've just lost my train of thought.
So just in terms of the narrative point, like, I mean, how do we start to, I mean, one of the things which I think we've heard a lot from the Horizon Scholars is, like, for instance, this is actually a good industry. We just don't tell the story. There is an industry where actually it aligns a lot with the values of young people, but often you don't see that. You know, like any farmer who's worth their weight is thinking about sustainability. Any business in agriculture that's really, like, got to focus on their future business model is already looking at profit and purpose going hand in hand. But that's not really always connecting with young people. So I guess that's where I'm going with this question. How do you think we do it?
Yeah, definitely, and it's a great question too. I think the gaps coming from a lack of education and of agriculture throughout the schooling years. It's not a common subject anymore. The participation rates in agriculture in higher education and tertiary studies is definitely falling, and I think that's where the connection's getting lost for the industry. So I think that's a really important sector to target is kids back in school and having these really good ag programs that show more than just farming, more than just primary production, but everything the industry has to offer, and promoting the ag industry from an early age, to put us back on the map and start looking like a bit of a hot industry again.
Jenna, I mean, this is something which you would also have experience of being the Sydney gal as well. So, like, where was your perception of agriculture? And now, if I could put you on a little pedestal, if you were to sell agriculture to young people in a city location, how would you do it? So, like, where was your perspective, and now how would you sell it?
Well, my perspective before school was production, it was farming. And as someone from Sydney, that was not what I was interested in. I wanted to continue living in a city, and I didn't know that was even a choice. And I think the main way to sort of target city students is to show them that you can do plenty of different jobs and stay right where you are. I mean, there's so much corporate that's involved with agriculture too. There's logistics, there's robotics, AI, engineering, sales, media. It's endless, really. Every sort of type of job can link to agriculture in some way, most of them. I think that's where we really need to be targeting, is highlighting those other job opportunities that don't just involve working on a farm, because that is one part of it and it's super important, but that gets sort of more screen time than the rest of the industry, I think, which is where that gap is sort of coming through.
And Jenna, like, your interest as well, like in the science side of things, because this is really where there is a huge gap right now and a huge opportunity. Like, there are so many possibilities with young people who are interested in STEM. So, like, what would the pitch be to them if we were going to change the narrative?
What really pulled me into my interest in the research side of things was learning about what's already been done in agriculture and seeing how cool and interesting those breakthroughs were. I think we need to be highlighting those a bit more and telling people about what we're doing currently to drive sustainability, to make our crops better. If we can see what's already being done, we can kind of envision where we can play into it in the future, what we can contribute.
Because also, I mean, this is that thing around, like, what if we change the narrative for good here? That potentially, like, you and Bill, you're at the forefront of a generation of young people who are going to be part of solving the biggest problems that humanity has ever faced. And agriculture is going to be either part of the solution in a major way, or in fact is not going to stand up and solve these problems. But Jenny, you're going to solve these problems. Bill, you're going to solve them. You know, like this is part of your remit. So how do we get that narrative out? Like how do we create that urgency, that global perspective, Jenna?
I think the sense of urgency is a tricky question because we're struggling to do that, get that message out there to the entire world, let alone just the industry. But we have a lot of young people who are really passionate about sustainability and they want to improve our world for, you know, a secure future. And we need to let them know that ag is a part of that. Ag is really, really caring and passionate about making our work sustainable and making sure we have a resilient industry well into the future. But I don't think many people see that. I think a lot of perspectives I've heard from people are pretty wrong and are about farmers not caring about their land and just, you know, farming it hard for profit, which is just not the case at all. Farmers really care about their land. That's why they do it, because they care about the land they're on and they care about producing quality products for our country. But I don't think people know that we care so much about sustainability. Part of the reason why I'm involved is because I want to make a difference to sustainability as well as ag. And I think that sort of side passion about making our future more secure is part of the reason why I'm here. But so many students don't know that we even care about it. So we need to be pushing that narrative that we do care. We're making changes to make it better.
And Bill, like, I mean, obviously, like, as I say, the traditional view, which of course is, you know, like we're at the local pub, we're at the local footy club, you know, that kind of perspective, that's where the grassroots of agriculture comes from and that people get into industry. But you've like kind of built quite an extraordinary global perspective, and I've seen you do this over the last couple of years. So like from Birchip, you know, you're looking out to the world and you're seeing opportunities. Maybe paint that picture and some of the opportunities you've seen and experienced as you've opened up and how you've opened up your perspective.
Yeah, I suppose the opportunity was when I got out and experienced a little bit more was that I could have an impact on agriculture a little bit more than at the farm gate. It became more than a narrative of how do we get a better crop and how do we can contribute to our community a little bit better. It becomes more how can we grow better crops across the country, and how can we make these communities stay alive through agriculture, really. And I think that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from, coming from a small town, that these towns survive on the back of agriculture. So I see a huge amount of opportunity in ag and from ag, that if we improve production, it goes hand in hand with saving a lot of rural areas and regional areas. And I suppose that's the opportunity that I've come and seen, Bryce.
I mean, that was always my end to begin with as well, because my first love was for rural and regional communities and was also for young people. And so like when I put those two things together, I realised I had to work in partnership with agriculture. You know, I had to advance rural industries and agriculture because that was the only way to lift the bar on all of the other things. Better life for young people in rural and regional Australia, more opportunities. I mean, but what's interesting for me has been that global shift in the last decade, you know, like to see young people like yourself, Bill, taking up so many opportunities globally, the Horizon Scholars, like not just being in that myopic view of, oh, this is what mum and dad did, you know, like we're wool farmers and that's all I know, you know, like actually like I'm going to jump and leap into another industry, into another silo. I'm going to go overseas and do something radically different, build my knowledge, build my science experience, even if I don't love all of the chem subjects or whatever. Like I think that that's been a seismic shift, seeing that in people like yourself, Bill, from my end.
Yeah, I suppose you get a platform to speak and grow, and anything can happen, really, Bryce. The power in the Horizon Scholarship is you feel like you're being listened to as young people, and you're with such an inspiring group of people. The energy that come off the back of that workshop, I felt that for 6 months too. That was incredible, and you feel like you get the right people in the room and get them together and get them thinking, and you feel like you can make a real difference. So I think that was half the work is getting the right people in the right seats, and you go a long way. And people like Jenna, they're just incredible people to work with. So the opportunities are great for these people.
Bill, I'm going to come to the second big question in the report, which is what if every school in Australia became a working farm and every student had an agricultural experience? And in the report, you sort of said, I would like to see 20% of schools in Australia developing a compulsory Year 9 agricultural subject by 2030. I mean, I can even remember there was some like militant talk where you were like, you're talking about conscription there at some point. I was like, but why does this matter? And what about the compulsory part of this? Why does it need to be every young person?
I said 20%. It was a measurable goal to reach for. I think that's important when you're setting out for these things is make it measurable. And I just found that it was no longer acceptable for industry and government to be letting the number of students applying for agriculture declining. So having a firm target on that was where that come from. And I just think agriculture is so important in society. Really, it's been the basis of society since and fundamental for our survival from the beginning, and affects us every day with our health, economics, our communities, and importantly the environment. And it's a very interdisciplinary subject, agriculture. It touches on a lot of things in ecology, biology, maths, chemistry, physics. It's just so important, but the gap here in between what people know and what it actually is. So I'm really passionate about getting agriculture back into schools, and start reigniting the industry with young people and get these really good thinkers back into our industry. They'll be our greatest asset, our people that we can attract.
I mean, the other key thing which I think about is leadership and your own personal values. Like, I think the moment that you're working with agriculture, like all of those things ticks off, numeracy, literacy, but it also like kind of forces you to have a sense of who you are in the world, like who you are as a leader, who you are as a collaborator, and also what kind of future you want to see as well, Bill.
Yes, massively, Bryce. And we got to touch on our values in the program, and we want to live our values every day, really, and through work, and we definitely feel like we can achieve that through the ag industry, and broadcasting the ag industry in that light, in an honest way and transparent way. And absolutely.
Jenna, you had a beautiful quote in there. You had a lot of beautiful quotes in this one. It was a joy kind of coming back. But let me read this one to you. We will know we are succeeding when people stop saying, oh, I didn't realise you were a country girl. I thought you were from Sydney. When I tell people that I'm doing a degree in science and agriculture. So agriculture is so vast and diverse. More people need to understand how expansive the industry is. And you don't need to be born in the country to be involved. You just need to be passionate about land production and agriculture's success. So like when you think about this question, what if every school became a working farm and every student had an agricultural experience? I mean, like from Bill's end, like he can imagine the P to 12 in Birchip, however many kids it is, Bill, like what about 120, 200 kids at the P to 12 there. That's kind of relatively simple and straightforward. You're coming from the vast, metropole of Sydney. Like, what does it look like? Why is this important? And what about this vastness you're talking about in careers and experience?
Yeah, I think getting ag as a compulsory subject in all schools in Sydney wouldn't necessarily be an easy task. I mean, my school alone had 2,500 students when I was there. But I do think an elective subject is really important. I mean, my school is run by a very passionate teacher, as was mentioned in the chat, and he's proved that when you put the work in and make it a really engaging subject, numbers increase, more students want to be involved, and they're turning people away now because they just have too many students wanting to select agriculture as a subject. And I think if that can be mirrored in other schools in Sydney, just imagine how many students we're going to have flowing through. But the vastness that I mentioned to do with sort of, where you can take it, I do think we need to highlight that a little bit more in education as well. Currently, the rubric is focused a lot on animal production and plant production, very specifically, with a bit of information around sort of robotics and biotechnology and some economics. But I'd like to see a little bit more of that to get the people who aren't necessarily interested in production involved, as well as having more schools offer it as an elective subject, because how can you get involved if you don't know it's there?
I mean, we had like that brainstorming session in Albury Wodonga and talked about, like, for instance, career paths that we thought weren't being sold enough. So we got into like things like agricultural engineering, for instance, soil health specialist, biotechnologist, aquaponics designer, agricultural economist, sustainable agricultural consultants. Of course, you've got the robotics piece, the drone piece, like the list goes on and on and on. But I'm really concerned about, Jenna, on the one hand, thank God for your teacher and that, but by chance that it was that teacher and that school, and by chance that it was someone in year 12 of Bill who went, look, maybe you should think about putting this down in your preferences. And it doesn't feel systematic. It doesn't feel like it's an actual approach from industry to properly hold on to or get the best and brightest in. Like, you could have easily been in a situation where that teacher wasn't at that school, and then what? So, like, how do we deal with that? How do we build it into a systematic approach?
Yeah, I think given the shortage of agriculture teachers, it's not realistic to have a massive overhaul right now and try and get it into all of our schools, even though I would like to see that. We need a more approachable method first. And I think that's about industry going out and getting involved with young people. A lot of the companies I've considered working at are the ones who I met at university events, who came and spoke to me, because I'm much more likely to pick somewhere if I've had a positive experience with people from that company beforehand. And if those interactions can also happen with high school students, then we're going to have way more people going, oh, actually, they had a really interesting job. They were really lovely to speak to. Maybe I should look into that a little bit more. So I think it's about making those connections with young people by people in the industry.
The third question that really came through the report, what if Australian agriculture became the most desirable workplace in Australia? I'm going to assume here now, Bill, you're in for the long game. You want to be here through your 7 distinct careers. Of course, Foundation for Young Australians did that work. This, as a young person today, will have 7 distinct careers. So you want to have them all in agriculture. But when you think about your mates, when you think about people in Birchip, blokes and girls in the footy club and in the pub who haven't gone into agriculture, what needs to happen to make it more desirable, a more desirable workplace and industry?
To make it more desirable to the broader range, Bryce, I think, just showcasing the vast opportunities in agriculture. Like Jenna's touched on earlier, it's more than just at the farm gate. And the jobs you were explaining beforehand. We need to sell the story that everyone has a spot in agriculture. You could be an orange juice tradesperson and you're involved in agriculture. And it's the trouble being, how do we showcase all those jobs? I think so. really getting to work on the marketing of our industry. I think that's probably the next steps where we need to go, and selling it on a bigger scale. There's plenty of small groups that are advocating and doing some great work for agriculture, but really tapping into some modern technology. Social media, a great place to start for young people. And as a Horizon Scholar group, we did come up with the Defence Force style marketing technique where one body governs the whole marketing process. It advocates domestic. We try and get people from overseas, and we want the best talent in agriculture, and just highlighting the really good stories and all the great work being done in the industry. I think something like that to start giving everyone a more holistic and positive view about the industry. That's what we need to get those local people down at the pub and in the footy team into agriculture. Yeah, Bryce.
Jenna, I mean, towards the end of the report, there is a section which is, this is the future the Horizon Scholars want to see. And I'm just going to read a few of these headlines. So one of them is embrace and accelerate innovation and technology. And, like what was surprising for me was there wasn't a deficit mindset from the scholars around, for instance, AI. Like a lot of the scholars were like, no, like let's use AI, like let's use technology to take out the hard and the unnecessary work, because agriculture has got big issues that it needs to deal with. And if we can cut out any things that we don't need to do, great. Like that was a surprise to me to hear that. It wasn't oh my golly, we're scared of that kind of innovation. It was like, no, embrace it. Another thing was about not accepting the status quo of today's workforce. Like diversity ended up becoming a big concern for the Horizon Scholars, and getting out of the bubble, thinking beyond agriculture, thinking beyond what we know. So maybe for you then, like how would you then describe, with that in mind, what a desirable or the most desirable workplace would look like if agriculture became the most desirable industry to work in Australia?
Yeah, I think we've been speaking a lot about diversity of jobs, but I also think we need to highlight diversity of people. We have people from all different backgrounds involved in this industry. It's not just a place for one type of person. You can find an area where you will fit in, and I think we need to make sure that we're highlighting that, but also making our workplaces welcome for more than one type of person. We need to make them a comfortable place to work, a good culture with the people who we enjoy spending time with, working arrangements that, put a bit of focus on family as well. But yeah, I think if we want to bring people in, we want to make sure we're supporting more people. Resilience is based in diversity. As I've mentioned before with genetics, diversity confers resilience. That's what I'm going to link it back to. And if we have more diverse people, we're going to have a more resilient workforce in the future, so we can the changes that are coming.
I'm just going to share some of the chat, and I'm also opening up to any questions as well, because we've got about 15 minutes here, and obviously got Bill and Jenna and myself and the AgriFutures team as well. Really interesting. So Sarah Hunter has just said, and Jenna, you'll have a perspective on this being from Barker College, but by focusing on the range of opportunities available, and particularly the scientific and technological aspects of agriculture, Scott Graham has taken agriculture at Barker College in Sydney from a disappearing subject into having more than double the number of Year 12 agricultural students than any other school in Australia. So that was the by luck or by chance bit that your mum and dad and you shifted schools and you ended up there. I mean, maybe just give us a bit of a sense as a student, like what that meant, particularly seeing the scientific and the technological aspects, which is sometimes missing in ag education.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the light kind of clicked for me, because I wasn't interested in farming, and I really liked biology at school, but I wanted to find a way to contribute more to the world, I guess, contribute more to sustainability and ensuring our future. And when I heard about biotechnology, the little snippet that I got in ag, it was like, oh yeah, that's that's a good path. I can take that. I'm interested in that. It was all about sort of finding my niche within a very broad place. But I mean, if it isn't mentioned, you can't pick it, you can't know. It's impossible as a high school student to know every single option you can take. There's just so many. So I think if we can highlight more, people will be able to find their niche and they'll be able to click onto it and they can look into it further and start reaching out to people and having people reach out to them too and get them involved. I mean, my school was fantastic at that. I'm really lucky.
I know, and big up to Scott as well, but and also to all the ag educators. I mean, we've got a few of them on the line as well. We have a real challenge, which is we don't have enough people teaching ag in schools, and we've got great organisations supporting, but it's nowhere near enough. You know, we need as much support and as many people going into education as well. And golly gosh, just one bright spark can change the path for someone like Jenna. You know, that's our job, all of us as leaders. Danielle Moore made a really interesting comment before. There needs to be careers counsellors and ag teachers armed with a resource in schools that showcases exactly what Billy is saying, so that an ag science degree can provide career opportunities well beyond the farmhand, i.e. in the export industry, grain, trading, livestock research, agribusiness, the list goes on. I have found, Billy, that this has also been a challenge in my work in remote and rural Australia. Like, so sometimes the greatest negative narratives I've seen have often come from schools in rural areas which have a narrative around agriculture as a subject for the dumb students, you know, the ones that, you know, who are not going to do law or not going to do medicine or not going to go on. But also, like, it's broken my heart from time to time that it's come from parents and friends as well who have gone, I don't want you to continue in this industry, you know, don't do this, you're too smart, go off and do something else. So, I mean, what would it be like to sort of have that kind of resource that Danielle was talking about?
A brilliant resource, actually, Bryce. I had the same sort of story growing up. My parents wanted me to get out of agriculture and go and experience something else. And yeah, just a more positive pathway. Something like that would really change the game in regional and remote. And, in the whole industry, really. I'm not sure. There'd definitely be a way to do it within a VCE subject or something like that. I had a great chat with a lady, Jane Lovell, who was telling me about an app called Invest in Your Farmer, where people they can't own a farm or own animals or anything like that, but they put money up and they buy a cow or some oysters and stuff like that, and they get real hands-on experience working in agriculture. And she was telling me about a simulated version for VCE students, and they play with a simulation money, but they get to learn all the different things on the ins and outs of agriculture. And if that something like that could showcase all the opportunities in ag, and more than just investing in your thing or a bit of genetics like Jenna does, I think that would be an awesome opportunity, and one I personally would have loved myself, actually, if to get students interested and thinking about different careers in ag. Yeah.
Just one other comment, Emma Moss, I can see here. Couldn't agree more, Jenna. Diversity is key. And there also has to be an onus on industry and business to ensure they're creating an environment of inclusion, growth and learning. So look, two things. One, I'm going to say this with love to my friend Bill, because we obviously, you know, represent the bloke part of the agenda, although we're two very different looking blokes here, Bill. By the looks of But, you know, firstly, one of the things that has really, after 20 years of working with young people in rural and remote Australia, working with young people in agriculture, I've seen a shift in this generation, Jenna, the types of Bill who are coming in, who are still knockabout larrikins, but actually do give a shit about diversity as well, like do care about getting women into roles, into leadership roles, do care about, you know, like other things as well. So that, like, seeing that has been beautiful, like seeing young men and young women from rural areas talking about their mental health and well-being. Like 10 years ago, I couldn't have imagined it in a group like Horizon or in my Haywire work, and seeing that now. But it's a bigger question, and obviously we've had the experience of last week being in Cairns, and it kind of got even deeper for us because there was, it's still a largely white cohort, the Horizon Scholars, and there was a whole conversation around how do we partner with First Nations people, and if we can't do this well, should we be working in this industry? Do you want to give a sense of that conversation, because it feels quite tied to this report as well, even though it happened at this year's summit?
Yeah, I think you're right. Although we have a lot of really passionate young people in the Horizon group, a lot of us are very similar, and I think we're not really getting enough perspective and enough good ideas if we're not including the wider voice. There's so much to learn from so many different groups, and even just at university when there's been students who farm with a family in Africa, and they have so many things to teach us about what they do and what we can learn from that. And I think we're not going to be able to achieve the best outcomes that we can if we're not including multiple different kinds of voices and perspectives. So that's my take on it, and that definitely includes Indigenous voices, because they have been on the land for so long. They know so much about our nature and how they run things the best way. And I think we need to find that good connection where we're taking the best of our modern sort of solutions and combining them with the best of traditional solutions to make the best outcome for agriculture.
And I mean, the real kind of key message that I've heard is in partnership and in collaboration. So, like, it's quite affirming where you've got 40 young Horizon Scholars, as I say, like leaders in industry now and into the future, saying if we can't get this right, then this might not be an industry for us. This might, and it certainly will be a barrier for other young people entering the industry. And I feel that has to be heard around board tables and at C-suites around rural industries in Australia.
Yeah, I think so. We need to be bringing up that conversation more, even if sometimes it's hard, we can't avoid it. It's part of the future. We need to be making sure we're moving forward. We need to be having these conversations, promoting young people, all types of young people. Yeah.
I've seen, I'm hoping that's Georgie Somerset who might be on the line. I've just seen has shared some AgForce, or might I'm assuming that is. There are so many great resources that are being shared here as well. So we will do something from AgriFuture's end to kind of collate some of this, Abby, and make sure we get it together into some document, because of course, like, sometimes it's just about joining the line between the dots and also not being the smartest kid in the room. Like, if someone's doing something that's good, just stealing it and running it to get, if that's working for Scott and you can replicate that in your school, like, let's just go ahead and do it. One final thing, there's a whole section at the end of this report that is around investing in young people. So you've both been invested in significantly. AgriFutures is a great organisation at facilitating connections, acting as a sort of little energizer bunny that sort of opens up opportunities for people and for organisations. And obviously the scholarships have helped as well. But maybe just a final word on the role of young people and how you see young people as partners or co-designers with industry in this. So Jenna, to you first.
Well, I think the main issue that we're discussing here is that young people are the future of our workforce. We need to keep flooding them in, but we need to know how to attract them. And if we're not really connecting with the young people and finding out what they want, then we're not going to get them involved. So I think the main thing is reach out, hear what their opinions are, hear what they need from industry to make them choose somewhere for a job. Start early on, because you can't pick something if you don't have a passion for it already. Kids aren't going to go and pick they didn't form a passion for it prior. So I think we need to be reaching out, connecting with people, young people of all ages, and we need to be really listening about what they want from their future career so that we can start in those changes and getting them interested in entering the industry.
In terms of that reach out and connect bit, Jen, I really want to just give a big ups here. Like, obviously I work regularly as a facilitator and a consultant with AgriFutures. But one of the things which I observed in this process with the workshop last year and this was, it wasn't just the board of AgriFutures coming in for an hour with you in this workshop, but they actually spent 2 days of time in this discussion, you know, like, and investing at that kind of level. That was from Kay Hull and John Harvey, the, you know, Kay, the former chairperson, and now this year with Kathy as well. So it's not about a token, have we had a little half an hour chat with the young people, but are you actually doing something meaningfully in partnership? I've seen Georgie Somerset's on the line as well. Georgie's another great example of this, has been in the Horizon program, you know, has sat in the room for a couple of days to immerse in the experience. So it can't just be a box ticking exercise, but actually genuine collaboration. It could be a shadow board. It could be about, you know, like involving young people in your strategic planning, having them in the room, hackathon or a co-design event, but actually having meaningful exchange, not just a sort of, have we, you know, had a yarn with the young people and moved on with our work type thing. Bill, you're getting old. You're obviously out of the Horizon program now. You're aging terribly. Won't be a young person for much longer. Going to move into that terrible sort of point of being, what, 24 or 25, and life's too hard for you now. But from your end, what do you reckon people on this call can do to sort of take these ideas forward and work better with young people?
Yeah, great question, Bryce. I love the idea of the shadow boards and the including young people in meetings. I think that's quite brilliant in just bringing a different perspective, and even if they're not having much of a voice in those, it's getting them prepared for the future and seeing where their career could take them, or where there's potential. And at a school age, just talking about agriculture really positively to young people and promoting it all of the time, I think that's going to be a really important part in inspiring these young people for a start, and keeping them in the industry. Yes, so many ways to go, but yeah, if we can get into industry and get agriculture back into schools, I think that'd be a great start.
You can see, like, got a few people lobbying to join your advisory boards already after this. So Jane Lovell, so Jenna and Bill got an opportunity, great. We also do have a whole swag of alumni, Jane, so we've got some amazing young people through this program, but also I can say hand on heart through a number of programs, Country to Canberra. The Rural Women's Awards often has young alumni as well. The Evoke Future Young Leaders, the NFF is doing some really great stuff with diversity in agriculture. And so I think that where we can tap people on the shoulder and provide these opportunities, we do. I want to say thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jenna. And really proud of the report and this conversation, but also just seeing this program, the Horizon program, go from strength to strength as well. We had a massive moment at the end of the summit where we kind of shared the learnings of the last summit here in Cairns, which of course ended last week. And it was just incredible to sort of be in a room with 40 young people who really feel so positive and engaged in terms of shaping the future. Not just sitting there on the side, but being active change makers, turning up and being willing to lean in. And obviously, Jenna and Bill, you epitomise that as well. So thank you so much. And to everybody on the chat as well, if you want to know more about the report, obviously it's online. I know Mark Allison from Elders shared it with a whole lot of CEOs and industry leaders, so do feel free to forward it on. And if you want to talk more about it, you've obviously know beautiful Abby from AgriFutures. And also I'm willing to chat with you about the report, and Bill and Jenna and any of the other Horizon scholars who are quoted in it will be more than happy to chat with you as well. So thank you so much. And we will compile all of this great list of resources. So make sure, Abby, we come back and check this chat box as well and copy and paste it over so we can work out what to do with all of this energy. But thank you so much, Bill. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. It's been really great to be online for this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryce.